I can't believe it. CNN actually admits that Barack Obama caged children too. Yep, just like Donald Trump. Of course, it's the media, so there's a catch. Also, you think Bernie Sanders' socialism is bad? Just check out this idea from Cory Booker. Free money for doing absolutely nothing. We'll look at that plus a whole lot more. I'm Bobby Eberle. This is a 13-minute news hour.
God bless the United States of America.
All right, as we all know, there is a big double standard in the media and on the left with what Democrats and leftists can do versus what conservatives or Republicans can do. Republican goes and says something about protecting traditional marriage, and they get blasted. Democrats say something, they get a pass. You know, if someone shows up a conservative in blackface, oh my gosh, it's the end of the world. Democrat does it, they keep their office, no big deal. And we see this time and time again. And in particular, we see it with President Trump. He says something, the media pounces on it. It doesn't matter if it's been done in the past. It doesn't matter if it's a continuation of Barack Obama's policies. As long as it's Trump, as long as they can put a negative angle on it, they're going to attack. President Trump is evil. He's a racist. He's a bigot, homophobic, you name it, while Barack Obama is a saint. Well, let's look at the border. In particular, the policy of separating children from parents who are crossing illegally, parents who are criminals. That policy, which was in place long before President Trump got in, but it's criticized as President Trump continued the policy. That is, he continued it until the media pressure was so bad that he finally stopped it. Barack Obama never got that pressure. He never stopped it, but President Trump has. Look at what CNN reported just yesterday on this issue. This just came up. First, President Trump was in the Oval Office and he had these comments.
President Obama separated the children. Those cages that were shown, I think they were very inappropriate. They were built by President Obama's administration, not by Trump. President Obama had child separation. Take a look. The press knows it. You know it. We all know it. I'm the one that stopped it.
All right, so President Trump is saying what we all know, just like he says the media all know it as well. This policy was continued and brought about in the Obama administration, yet the media pretend it doesn't even exist. But following that clip on Wolf Blitzer's CNN program, look at what they actually said yesterday.
And when President Obama separated children from their families' wealth, or from adults' wealth, it was for their protection.
Right.
It was if there was a risk of trafficking or other kind of harm that might have been incurred. But even if he did do that, why is Donald Trump saying that two wrongs make a right?
Oh my gosh, there you have it. They flat out actually admit that Barack Obama had this policy in place. But you see the little twist? President Obama was doing it for moral reasons. He was doing it to protect the children. President Trump is doing it for evil reasons, obviously, right? And it's just amazing that the media can actually go out there, admit what's really going on, but still try and spin it in a way that makes President Trump look bad and former President Barack Obama look, like an angel. But that's not all. Take a look at what Obama said just this week while giving a speech. He said this, which I just find it remarkable, and we'll analyze it, but take a look at this report. I worry sometimes as we think about how to deal with the immigration issue, we think that any move towards assimilation of the existing newcomers to existing culture is somehow a betrayal or a denial of people's heritage or what have you, Obama said at a town hall event in Berlin on Saturday, before arguing that if you're going to have a coherent, cohesive society, that everybody has to have some agreed upon rules, and there's going to have to be some accommodations that everybody makes, and that includes the people who are newcomers. All right, that's assimilation, okay? So what about language? Barack Obama went on, and here's what he said. Should we want to encourage newcomers to learn the language of the country they are moving to? Of course. Does that mean they can never use their own language? No, of course it doesn't mean that, he said. But it's not racist to say, you're going to be here, then you should learn the language of the country you just arrived at. All right, so he's saying that that's not a bad thing, that you should actually learn the language of the country you're moving into, and you should assimilate into that culture. I mean, why isn't this a major story in the media? Why isn't this being covered on the left? Because can you imagine if Donald Trump went out and said this? I mean, that Americans should adopt the culture, that we should promote an American culture, that you should learn English. Actually, he has said that, and he's been blasted. He's been called, a tool of the alt-right. This is white supremacy, veiled white supremacy. How can you force them to learn English? You're racist and everything like that. That's what they'd say about President Trump. Yet Obama just now said it. He just said it this past weekend, and no one says anything about it. And I bring that up just so you can be, reminded and tell your friends that they need to listen to what the media is actually saying and what they're not saying, what they're not covering. If they treat Trump one way and then Obama says the same thing and they treat him a different way, you need to hold them in suspicion and make sure that your friends and colleagues know what's actually going on, because it's just absolutely crazy what the media takes a pass on and what they decide to pounce on, all because of the person that is represented there. If it represents conservative ideals, they will attack no matter what, no matter if they come out as hypocrites. That is their agenda. So keep that in mind. We're going to move on to Cory Booker, one of the countless 2020 Democrat candidates. Bernie Sanders is the known socialist, right? Yet Cory Booker just announced a new policy that he wants to implement as president, and he's pushing legislation to give people money from the time they are born for doing nothing. Okay, this is what Cory Booker tweeted just the other day. Okay, he says, "We need to close the wealth gap and give every child born in the U.S. a fair shot at the American dream. My baby bonds proposal is a clear path toward making that happen." In that tweet, Booker references the New York Times piece, and that describes the plan. And, it sure is nice to have the New York Times as your cheerleader, as your go-to paper to spread your propaganda. And here, if we look into the New York Times piece, here's what they say. Speaking to a crowded living room, Mr. Booker of New Jersey wrapped his proposal in familiar campaign themes of appealing to the country's higher morals, and tucked in after 20 minutes of more than just traditional stump speech. All right, and he goes on, the New York Times goes on and reports, but the in-depth policy discussion, aided by the rare presence of a note card in Mr. Booker's hand, reflected an increased focus on policy specifics in his campaigning for the Democratic presidential nomination. Up to now, Mr. Booker's campaign has focused largely on sweeping upbeat oratory and calls for unity to solve the country's growing political divisions. Okay, enough of that. I just wanted to show you there in the Times article how fluff it is. I mean, oh my gosh, talk about a cheerleader. They didn't even get to his policy yet, but they phrase it in these, high moral endeavors. And you hear that more and more. You hear that from Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, and you hear that from others, that what they're doing is moral. And if you oppose that, of course, you're immoral. But let's look at the specifics, okay? A broad rewriting of the social contract, Mr. Booker's proposal calls for every child born in the United States to be given a $1,000 bonded savings account that is run through the Treasury Department. Each year, the federal government will contribute to the account on a tiered basis. Those who come from a family of four making less than $25,100 a year would be given $2,000. The contributions would be lowered as families move up the economic ladder, and any family of four making more than $125K would receive no contributions. The proposal estimates that children from the nation's poorest families would receive roughly $46,000 when they turned 18, but the money would carry restrictions. It could only be spent on wealth-building transactions like paying for college, buying a home, or starting a small business. All right, so I guess that's the new brand of socialism that these Democrats are pushing. Well, whether you rebrand it or not, it's socialism. Taking money from other people, redistributing that wealth, and giving it to people just for being alive. I mean, I would love to be 18 years old and have $46,000 in my bank account, but that's not reality, folks. We can't be paying people for nothing. There's a process in America where you take advantage of opportunity. You don't get outcome. You don't get predefined success. You have to work for that yourself. And if that means that some people have to work a little bit longer, maybe go to college part-time like I did. I graduated in 4.5 years with 1.5 years of working mixed in there because I needed to pay for it. No one else was going to. There are ways to get through life to achieve success that might take a slower path, but it's your path. It's not the government taking from someone and giving it to you just because they want to build a constituency. So think about that as far as these Democrats that are running for Congress. Now, I want to get into the college, what's going on the college scene, because there's some crazy stuff going on. And first, as you know, there's this college admissions scandal, which has embroiled a bunch of these rich, powerful, famous people. And there are some pleas being cut. Prosecutors have been pushing, and a group of about 14 of these parents have pled out. And it's interesting because there's a number of them that haven't yet. And these folks that have done the early pleas have obviously gotten the best deal. Some reports are that it could result in anywhere from 0 to 6 months jail time, but those who hold out longer are obviously going to get more. So here's a little report on what's going on. One of those who actually pled already is Felicity Huffman from Desperate Housewives, and she issued an apology letter, and here is what she said. Said, "I'm pleading guilty to the charge brought against me by the United States Attorney's Office," the Desperate Housewives alum said in a statement obtained by Fox News. "I'm in full acceptance of my guilt and with deep regret and shame over what I have done. I accept full responsibility for my actions and will accept the consequences that stem from these actions," Huffman continued. "I am ashamed of the pain I have caused my daughter, my family, my friends, my colleagues, and the educational community. I want to apologize to them, and especially I want to apologize to the students who work hard every day to get into college, and to their parents who make tremendous sacrifices to support their children and do so honestly." So, was that sincere? Was that sincere apology? To me, it sounded great, but is it for real? At this point, I don't know, but the real point is that she seems to be doing the things that need to be done to get her sentence reduced as far as possible. Now, there's the other group that hasn't come to plea deal yet, and new indictments were just handed out yesterday, and here is part of that report. Actress Lori Loughlin and her fashion husband designer Massimo Giannulli were indicted on fraud and money laundering charges Tuesday in a multi-million-dollar college admission cheating scam that has ensnared dozens of wealthy parents trying to get their kids into prestigious colleges. The Fuller House star and her husband, along with 14 other parents, were charged in Boston Tuesday in a second superseding indictment with conspiring to commit fraud and money laundering, the Department of Justice told Fox News. So that's a big deal. When you add money laundering to these charges, and these people still have not, accepted a plea from the initial indictment or initial charges, that's a big deal. So we need to watch what's going on there because we cannot let this continue to happen. You can't cheat the system in this and commit fraud, bribery, cheating, to advance your kids when other kids, I have one child that's about to graduate and another one that's about to enter college next year. So this is a big deal to me, and I want them to get in fair and square and not have to deal with stuff like this. So folks, we're out of time. There's a lot of news out there, and we'll bring up some of the other topics on Friday, but that's the news for today. And before I go, I just want to thank you that after Monday's show, we just hit 10,000 subscribers. We topped 10,000 subscribers. And I thought that was going to be a long-term goal, and we hit it so fast. We're approaching 14,000 now. But I just want to thank you. Please subscribe and tell your friends. Thank you so much for the show. Leave your comments below, and I'll try and answer as many as I can. I'm Bobby Eberly. This is a 13-Minute News Hour.